Hi there, welcome to the edition of Modern Retro Review, and in this review I'm going to be looking at a Commodore 64 homebrew game from 2019 called Blastopia DX. You can see the title screen here. Now obviously this is already a few years old, but I have been working through a back catalogue of homebrew games, having never played many of them before, and this one stood out to me, so let's take a look at it. So this was originally produced for the RGCD Game Dev Competition, as it says there. That was a competition to come up with a game that would fit in a 16K cartridge, so you have to use some clever programming techniques to achieve that. As you can see, it was programmed and the music was by Richard Bayliss, aka The New Dimension. That's the name of his publishing arm that he publishes all his games on the internet and things with. They're all digitally available, usually for free, from his itch.io site, which I'll put a link to in the video comments as usual. And you can also see that the graphics and design was by Saul. He's another prolific homebrew coder. Richard Bayliss, by the way, has been doing homebrew games for Commodore 64 for over 20 years. Saul has done probably 30 homebrew games or been involved in them himself, so a good combination of guys who know exactly what they're doing with this system. So let's just briefly talk, I suppose, about the title screen. It's fairly simplistic. It's got some ASCII or Petsky-esque graphics at the top there for the logo. You can see the score readout at the bottom, and otherwise you can see that it records a high score, but probably not much else. There's no flicking between other screens with high score table or anything like that. So you get the idea, pretty simplistic stuff. Obviously, because the game's got to fit in 16K, not 64K, you've got to take some shortcuts or cut some corners here and there, and having high score tables and things like that would be something that you would leave out, but at least it does record a high score. So as it says at the bottom there, press fire for some serious blasting, so that's what I'm about to do. Okay, so let's get started, and as you can see, it's a horizontally scrolling shooter, and you pilot a quite nice looking spaceship along the landscape, and the idea of the game is to shoot the waves of enemies that come towards you. Nothing shoots at you, but collision with them will run down your shields, as will collision with the landscape or these shields, these barriers that are coming across the screen periodically. Now when you shoot everyone in a range or swarm, squadron, whatever, of enemies, then you will get, quite bizarrely, a llama. Probably a nod to Jeff Minter there. I think it's actually a camel, now I think about it. Now I remember reading the idea of the game, or the background for the game, there's one of them, is that aliens have come to Earth and stolen all the camels, and you're trying to rescue them and also destroy the alien worlds that the aliens inhabit. So when you shoot a wave of 5 enemies, then a camel is dropped. You collect that camel, and you've got to collect a quota of camels on each level. This level you've got to get 10, I've currently got 3. So graphically it's quite a nice game. The graphics are very Commodore 64 shooter, as you'd expect. Lots of sort of metallic looking sheens to the enemies and the landscapes, and good use of the colours to make it look like there's more colours than there really is. The background has got a kind of weird star field in, which is a bit distracting, but it's not too bad. The main player sprite has a nice sheen to it as well. There's a fairly good variety of enemies. There's another camel collected. I've got 7 now. One more there, and get that one. Yeah. So yeah, graphics are nice. It's also got a pretty decent soundtrack that was done by Richard Bayliss, but it's also got sound effects as well, so that's nice. You don't get that in a lot of Commodore 64 games, maybe more so in the homebrew area, perhaps you do, but back in the day you either got one or the other usually in game, so that's pretty cool. It is a nice SID tune, very suited to the game as well. So I've got 9, I just need to get one more, which hopefully I'll get here. And now you get the warning, or guidance I should say, to land, and somewhere along in this landscape, which by the way is just repeating over and over again until you complete the level, is a landing pad. So you've got to land on that landing pad to complete the level, and when you do you'll destroy, here it comes, drop on the landing pad there, you destroy the alien planet and the level's completed. And you get an extra life for completing a level, and you move on to the next one, which has got similar enemies, at least to begin with, but different landscape, which is more yellow than the first one, which was more blue. Oh, I've missed that camel there. So now the quota of camels you've got to collect is 12, so it's a little bit more difficult, or takes a little bit longer, and there's more difficult terrain to negotiate as well, so it does get a little bit more difficult as each level progresses, I guess you could say. You could say it's a little bit repetitive, because all you're doing is shooting different squadrons of enemies that come onto the screen, and the background obviously does repeat over and over again while you're doing that. But I quite like it because you've got an aim to the game, which is to collect these camels and then reach the landing pad to destroy the level. So it's not just a mindless shooter, you have got to really focus on collecting the waves of 5, because if you only shoot 4, yes, you get some points, which is great, but you don't make any progress in the game. You've also got to choose your position on the screen quite carefully, because there's landscape to crash into which drains your shields, and also those barriers that come across the screen periodically. So you really got to think about where you position yourself on the screen to make sure you don't run into those too much. So yeah, overall I think it's a pretty nice idea, nicely presented, and quite impressive that it's fitting into 16K of memory on the Commodore 64, I would say. It's certainly got the look of, you know, a decent budget game from the, you know, sort of 80s era or early 90s era of the Commodore 64. So it's recreated that in probably a lot less memory than those games occupied. So that's pretty cool. I like those enemies there. They're a bit Space Invadery. You got some eyeballs. The Space Invaders, by the way, were new for this stage. They weren't in the first one. Various different rotating enemies. They're all very nicely animated as well, so they're not static enemies for the most part in terms of, you know, they're animated and they're moving around the screen, of course. So I've got 9 out of the 12 camels on this level, and that's 10. So yeah, it is fairly repetitive, but you know, if you want a high score challenge, then it's a pretty good game, I would suggest. It's very nicely programmed, well put together. Oh, I've got all the camels now. I didn't think I collected one of them, so I'm just looking out for the landing pad to complete this stage. It'll come up eventually. Here it is. Drop onto that, and away we go onto the next level. So onto level 3, and it's now green and spiky. Ooh, you can fly into the landscape to collect the camels, by the way, if you want to. That's your choice. You will lose shields if you do so, but you can do it. You can see already this level's going to be a lot harder. There's a lot more obstacles to negotiate landscape wise. The shields that come across the screen are activated when you come onto the screen, so you haven't got a chance to quickly dash past them. The enemies are moving in that bubble. Those bubble enemies are new again to this level, and they're moving in a slightly different way to the previous ones have, to make it harder to shoot them. So it's all ramping up the difficulty slowly but surely. I do think it's probably a little bit easy once you've played it a couple of times, as I have before I did this review, because once you learn the patterns of the enemies, you know where to sit and when to shoot. You kind of want to shoot in a little sort of cycle where you leave a little moment between each shot to get them as they come into range. Having said all that, I'm not doing very well in this level so far. But yeah, you do get a lot of lives. I've got another life for completing the previous stage, so I've got 5 lives now, and not really come close to losing one yet, although that might change soon. Because this level is not going as well as the previous ones. So there you see, I flew into the landscape to collect that camel and ended up using up all my shields and finally lost a life. And at that point as well, a new enemy came on the screen, which was a big sort of blue cube. They're quite fast and quite hard to get, so as I say, it's slowly ramping up the difficulty level, which is quite a nice way to do things. Not throw too much at you right from the start. Here's those cubes again. They're quite hard to get because of how fast they move. Got 3 of them that time, but yeah, that wasn't easy. So yeah, in a lot of places here, when you shoot the enemies, the camel is going to drop straight through the landscape, so you've got to make a decision whether to go for it or not. Oh, there goes another life. I've got 9 out of 15. That was quite an easy wave of enemies to get. As you see, if you fire just with the right sort of iteration or pause between each shot, you can kind of shoot each lineup just like that quite easily. One more, get you. Oh. So I'm now down to 2 lives, and I've still got 2 camels to pick up to fulfill the quota on this stage. Just 1 to get now. Yeah, I missed all of them. Well, nearly all of them. I don't know if I've managed to shoot a wave of the blue cubes at all yet. There we go, that should get me the last one. So now all I've got to do is find the landing pad. Hopefully it'll come up fairly soon. The levels aren't particularly long and they do wrap around, as I've said, so you're only going to have to wait a short amount of time to actually get the landing pad. There it is, in fact. Oh, I missed it and crashed and lost a life. Oh right, okay, at least I know where it is for next time. But yeah, I'm a bit short on lives now. Having said it wasn't too hard, it suddenly got quite hard. I think a combination of the faster moving enemies and the more tricky landscape has made it a little bit more difficult. So here we go, let's get in there this time. There we go, did it this time. It is a bit odd that you have to crash into the landscape effectively to complete a level, but there you go. So I'm up to 2 lives again now. And on to the next level, level 4, which is quite purple and very nicely done, I have to say, because that purpley sheen looks really nice, and I don't even know how you achieve that with the colour palette of the C64, but yeah, that looks great. The graphics, as I mentioned, were done by Saul, who has done loads of good games, or been involved in loads of good games homebrew wise, as far as I'm aware. Not played too many of them myself yet, but I hope to rectify that as this series progresses. So I'm now going to get 16 camels. Done alright there. There's the landing pad for future reference as well. Oh, missed that one, that's a shame, because that was quite an easy batch of enemies to destroy there as well. There we go, it's going okay. Oh no, having said that, I've just lost another life. So I probably won't complete this level. I've still got 10 to get. This is a new enemy as well, very fast, and bounces back across the screen once it's got to one side. So yeah, and here's another wave of new enemies. So it's obviously introducing more dangerous enemies as the game progresses. Movement's very smooth, by the way. I haven't really mentioned the movement, but the joystick controls are very precise, so that's good, because you need it in some of these stages with these things all dotting around trying to blow you up. Nope, missed all those. Can't see me ever shooting a wave of these. Oh, and here's another new type now, triangular enemy, which was actually quite easy to get, although I missed the camel at the end of that, I think. I'm up to 10. There's still a possibility of getting to the next stage if I don't mess it up. My shield's getting a bit on the low side now. Oh, I missed that again, that's a shame. Oh, there we go. And there we go, that's game over. Ran into some scenery and my shields ran out. And that's it. So I got a high score, I got 30,640. Obviously I got the high score because it was the first game. I'm not going to have another try and beat that, but I think that's a pretty decent little game. If you're looking for a sort of simple shooter with a high score challenge, then you can't go wrong there. As I said, it's completely free, downloadable from Richard Bayliss's itch.io site, so check that out. And there's loads of other games on there that he's produced as well, so there's plenty to choose from if you don't like the look of Blastopia DX. That'll do for this review. If you've got any thoughts about the game, if you've played it, or having seen this video you want to play it, then let me know in the video comments. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in another modern retro review in the near future. Bye for now.